Suns fans, you know what time it is in the PHX.
Empire of the Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
Empire of the Suns.
Hello there, and welcome to the Empire of the Suns podcast. My name is Kellen Olson, joined, as always, by Kevin Zimmerman. What's up, man?
Howdy. How's it going? How was media day? I couldn't be down there with you. I'm so sorry, but kind of a crazy news day yesterday.
Man, you're an editor
no reason.
that leads. You know, I'm just an editor. I don't know what that's like over there, man. It's been a crazy week for us. Yeah, and it's Tuesday. It's it's Wednesday? Is that the line from 30 Rock, the meme?
Couldn't tell you.
Oh, you haven't seen 30 Rock? That's
no.
a shame. Everyone bully him.
Liz Lemon?
That's her name.
Okay, I got that
Alec Baldwin's character, she's just like, oh God, what a week. And he's like, Lemon, it's Wednesday. But now I'm forgetting the day of the week, which really makes me mad. It's been crazy. We got owners coming on our airs saying crazy stuff. Like, as the kids say, that was out of pocket by Ken Kendrick. It was nuts. The Cardinals had a embarrassing loss, and embarrassing, a word we don't use lightly around here. Embarrassing. The Diamondbacks had their season come down to the last weekend. They get eliminated. So for those of you that are only here in Sun-centric kind of circles, that is my way of introducing to you guys that it has officially become Sun season in more ways than one. I don't think like only a small percentage of Cardinals fans have been like, the season's over, screw it, it's basketball season or whatever. But we're trending in that sort of direction right now, which is great timing because media day was yesterday. First practice at training camp was today. Thoughts?
Okay, so big picture. And we knew this was going to happen. Running it back, new coaching staff, you're going to get optimism. Oh, everything's great again. And like what you spoke about the other teams, bad things happening to them. Like there's optimism on the Suns' end, definitely. I just wanted to ask you kind of more of the big picture. Okay. How do we approach this? Do we wipe last year? Wasn't good. Or do we take a lot of last year and say, look, point guard thing shouldn't be a problem anymore, but you still have the three superstars figuring out their roles. How much do we attach this team to last year? Because like, if you want to be positive, it's continuity between a lot of the important players, but also it's like, can this fail again, you know?
At least half of it until I am proven otherwise. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to go as far as saying it's half of it, but not the majority of it. So I'll go like a clean 50-50 split down the middle. You hear Brad talk yesterday, and he sounds completely rejuvenated and for a million different reasons. And you could just go one by one. You could go three main things with him. One, injuries. And I don't even think with his answers he necessarily agreed with what I was saying when I asked him in the podium aspect of it, which is always a weird environment. It's a tough place to talk because it's a really big open room with a lot of people there. You're talking into a microphone. It's not the usual room. But he still gave a really good answer, but he was just basically saying he never got in rhythm. And we talked about all the time on this podcast how, and the thing that I've mentioned is like there's 5 or 6 stretches last year where it looked like he was just starting to get going. He got going for a couple of games and then he got hurt, or then he got hit in the face, or then his nose got broken, or then someone undercut him. Dante DiVincenzo undercuts him and he sprains his ankle. That was reason number 1 why it was so frustrating. Reason number 2 is he had like 3 different roles. I don't know, and we don't know to public knowledge when those roles occurred and when they kind of happened, but they kind of played it off like he was the point guard at a certain point in December and then for the rest of the year. But I would argue that especially towards the back half of like the last quarter of the regular season, and then there was that weird Brad's only taking like 6 shots a game stretch in April. And that was when we were kind of back to like point Book and things like that. And in the playoffs, they were going in and out of it. But when Book was getting the ball and handling it, it was going better. So his role was all over the place. And then 3, his relationship with the coaching staff, obviously. And you hear him talk, the main things that he said, but what he said to Wolf and Luke in particular was, I just have one goal this year and I want to have fun, which is like, wow, that's deep, man. But at the same time, it sounds cliche. It might sound like, okay, man, like, yeah, like you're making $50 million a year. Isn't that fun already? But it's like, no, his basketball approach this year is not to shoot this from three, win this many games, win the hustle award, or try and make all defense or whatever. He's just trying to not reconnect with the love of the game that he has, but reconnect with how much fun he has when he plays basketball, because basketball, when it's going well, is super fun, just like anything. When it's not going well, especially when you are under public scrutiny constantly, it must be pretty overwhelming and really suck. So I think it's really smart, and there's a but.
Yeah.
But I will tell people who are new around here, I really encourage you to either read my story on ArizonaSports.com from about 2 months ago, where the headline is, "What are the Suns doing with Bradley Beal?" or the podcast episode we did off of that, which was on the point guard stuff and all this stuff. And basically, Tyus is not the third option on the team, but he's going to be running the offense and doing point guard stuff, so he is the third option. So Brad is not the fourth option, because he's not ahead of Kevin or Devin. That's not happening. So how is he going to be able to figure out that spot? How are they going to be able to get Brad there? And what I wrote about in my column yesterday was the word of this season is maximize, and I wrote that down like 3 or 4 days ago, and then Budenholzer literally said maximize, and I was like, oh, there we go, look at that. Because Brad is number one for me on the list. I think people look at the years that Kevin and Devin had, and I think it's easy to write off, all NBA seasons, they played really well. But I think all of us know, who were watching that team all year, that they had pretty underwhelming seasons in terms of their overall impact on a game-to-game basis. With Brad, it's like, how much can you get the most out of what Brad can be on this team? I don't even say get the most out of Brad, because you just can't. You cannot get 28 points per game, third team All-NBA Bradley Beal on this team. That's not going to happen. But can you figure out, because I'm sure Bud is watching that game in New Orleans, or watching the games during that stretch in particular, and I think that's December, the one he guarded Zion, and there was a couple of games in there. There was a big game. There were some big games where he scored a lot of points, but there were like these 17, 12-point games where he was so good in the little areas, and I was like, role player Bradley Beal? Kind of figured he could do that, especially watching back for the Vogel piece, watching back the Wizards playoff games when he was like 22 or whatever, watching that guy, and it was like he was doing little stuff next to John Wall and Marcin Gortat and Nene and all those guys when he wasn't having as much of a bigger offensive role. But as you can tell with how long I've been going on this, I think Brad I don't even want to demean it to like just the X factor and make it such a simplistic term, but I think not just Brad, but what they get out of Brad is going to swing their season or not, because I think the degree of difficulty here is a 9-9-7, whatever Simone Biles' scores are that pop up on the bottom for degree of difficulty. That is the degree of difficulty for this situation.
Yeah, I think one interview with Bickley and Murata with James Jones kind of spelled out, it wasn't specifically about Brad at all, but it spelled out like how tough this is to, if you're talking about maximizing people. And so let's put it on Brad. So like James said, everyone has to sacrifice. That's the toughest part about building a championship, right? A bit championship team. And sacrifice can come in lots of different forms. Tyus Jones sacrificed money to come here. Grayson Allen sacrificed his role to bring Tyus Jones here, helping him recruit him and that kind of thing. Bradley Beal's going to already did last year, sacrifice his role, taking upwards of 15 shots a game. He was down at 13 or something like that because Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So can you maximize Brad where, yes, he can be Bradley Beal of old when Book or KD aren't having the best night or the defense is shifted towards them immensely? Can Book and KD say, oh, Brad's going, I can do lockdown defense stuff? Like, we didn't see enough from that across the board last year. And that's tough, again, with like guys who are scorers. When they're going, it's like, if we go a couple of years back, Book against Point Book playing against Denver and stuff to start that series, his best stretch as a pro probably. Like, when he's going scoring, he's also best playmaker Book. And it's the complete opposite now, where it's like you just got to do all little things and you're going to get your opportunities to be yourself, but it's not all the time. So I think that's where Bud's job is the hardest because these guys have to learn to find rhythms, especially when we're, again, talking offensively, where maybe they're not having the ball in their hands, and it is Tyus Jones getting them organized. But we did see, like, Book could do that with Chris Paul. Even though he had a big role, Book could do that with Chris Paul. I think, and Brad spoke very blatantly, openly about getting a point guard and not having to do that anymore, which I think we kind of guessed, but just him saying that, okay, I can be Brad. I don't have to do everything that I'm not used to. I understand I'm going to have to be a defensive ace sometimes, but it's not all the time. Like, that's just not putting too many things on people's shoulders, and that's at least a better start. And I guess, again, going big picture, I think you enter this season with the roster is more balanced. Would you say this roster is deeper than last year? Probably. It's not perfect by any means, but do you have more, I know I can trust this rotation guy. Maybe he doesn't fit exactly great with everyone else, but
you have
I
a championship roster on paper. That's kind of what I wrote about. It's like, on paper, this works. If you can get everything out of it, this is a title-worthy roster.
Yeah.
It's just the getting the most out of it part is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, and it's like I know people don't want to hear this about last year's roster, but we knew even going into last year, this roster is pretty imperfect. Like, you would have to have a couple of the wings and the minimum guy signings pan out. And, like, honestly, that was a reset, a rebuild year, and kind of maybe wasted. But in any case, that roster was not that good. This roster is a little bit better, if not significantly.
I agree. To go back to Brad a second, the point that I'll keep reemphasizing all year and going back to last year, I think it's easy to compare Brad to any of the third bananas on big threes and like the great all-time ones. But look at the careers of all of those guys. So Bosh, Ginobili, Draymond. All three of those guys are really, really, really great players. I think Draymond is the one especially that got elevated by his situation. He would have been a really good player anywhere, but he gets tremendously elevated by optimizing, maximizing, all that kind of stuff. All three of those guys would have had really, really, really good NBA careers elsewhere in other situations. They would have never made the Hall of Fame. All three of them are already Hall of Famers.
Can I throw Ray Allen in that?
Yeah. Like the Ray Allen on the Celtics teams is the perfect thing. So you look at Chris and like his numbers go down from Toronto to Miami, like Brad's numbers went down.
Yeah.
There's just such a degree of difficulty to that job. And
like, why did Klay Thompson last year? Like, why is he dealing with all that in his career? That kind of thing, yeah. Yeah,
it's a really difficult thing to do, but I just say that as like I'm not predicting that Brad is going to win and get into the Hall of Fame now, but it's like if this Suns team would have won 2 to 3 championships and it would have been with this big three, Brad would have at least Hall of Fame consideration, because that would be like the way in which he is contributing to the team. And I'm not saying he has to meet those standards, but those are just like, again, the goals, like the aspirations it should be about, and envisioning what he is on this team. It's like his numbers are way down, but his overall contribution to a title winning team, that is like the peak of that. Yep. And you're looking to go somewhere a little lower. Like, everyone should just try and be Drew Holiday, I think, all the time in all facets of life, not just basketball in general. But can you be the Drew Holiday on either the Milwaukee team or the Boston team? And be it with your skill set and not actually be Drew Holiday. Like, I think that's part of the meme here, is that I think they're asking Brad to kind of be Drew Holiday, and that's crazy. We'll see. That's only I say that based off nothing we heard yesterday or today, but we're just going to see it eventually. It's like, all right, who's guarding Ja tonight? Yeah. Here we go. Yeah. Who's guarding De'Aaron? Who's guarding Jamal? Who is guarding Luka? Here we go. Let's see it. Who's guarding Kyrie? We're going to find out real soon. But all of that is to say, like, he has that really great opportunity in front of him for that. And if he can just start having fun, then he can see his career and like what the idea of it is really, really turn around. Even if this team doesn't win a championship, if he unlocks that skill set for him, guess what? He's going to have another like really, really great. His second half of his career will be better than the first half of his career, because he's definitively entered the second half of his career now. He probably did like 2 or 3 years ago, and it's been great. But is he like one of the best players of his generation? No, he isn't. he's one of the best scorers that we've had in the last 5-6 years, but to that degree, not necessarily. And I think that there's a chance there for him. So I say that just the motivation for him specifically. Do you think that this team, how easy do you think it is to take more threes? I was going to ask Bud about this today, but I'm going to ask him tomorrow instead. So we'll have more on this, but pace and threes was paramount.
I think it's
just like it was for every other media day in the NBA on Monday.
I think it's pretty easy. Are we talking like you got to get up? I'm trying to think of what's a reasonable number. If we're talking an increase of like 0.1, absolutely yes. Are we talking 5 more threes per game? Like, look, if you
can I get to 37? Can I get 5 more a game?
Where were they at last year?
32.
32, yeah. Okay. So would 37 be like top 5?
Top 10-ish.
Only top 10?
35 okay. is so I might want to make it
average. Maybe even like say 6, 7. But
they
let's
should
say
try
5.
and get 40 up a game.
Yeah.
Remember when Earl Watson was like, I want 33s a game? That was only 8 years ago. Yeah. And now we're in 40 territory. That's how fast this thing has happened.
I think
Earl Watson, offensive ingenuity at its finest.
I think they can get there pretty easily. Look, if you look at just numbers, it's not a significant increase by anyone. I think Grayson Allen last year was a good example, and Eric Gordon, of just like, it looks like chucking sometimes, but there's a flow to the offense where it's not chucking. There were a lot of plays where you could pick out 1 per game for maybe booking KD that was like, should have taken a 3 there. Throw in 1 for Nurk a game. Tyus Jones can shoot 3s. So like,
did you see the Brad quote where it was like, Bud showed me clips from last year already? Yeah.
Grayson might drop off, so you lose a little there just because of playing time, maybe. It's going to have to come from the wings. It's going to have to come from KD and Book a lot. But yeah, I think you can get at least 4 more per game without question, but the real goal is get 5 to 6, and that's just mindset change. But also, like, if you look at, we should look at tape of this more, which I haven't admittedly. Tyus Jones getting into the paint, kicking out. We're going to talk about pace in a sec.
That's on my bucket list, not my bucket list. It is like a bucket list with how busy I am this week, but it's on my list of things to do for the story I'm writing for tomorrow, which is looking at. I asked Tyus about kick ahead passes.
Yeah,
and I think
kick ahead passes.
I was like, hey, kicking ahead to Kevin Durant, that must look pretty cool.
I mean, in KD in Olympic play, just throughout history, maybe not as much this year, but they would just get a defensive stop, run down someone's throats, and KD had so many pull-up in semi-transition or transition that, like, it's not, people hate it maybe because it's like, oh, you had a 4-on-3 or something, but it's in rhythm, it's wide open, he's really good at stepping into those. So they're just from those things, and maybe more driving, and if you get a rim roller who's consistent, I don't know who that's going to be, you can find a lot of threes, to answer your question in a long way.
And you know what Celtics fans probably said ad nauseum during games? They were like, why are we shooting so many threes? Like, it's not going in. We need to touch the paint. We need to, like, score at the rim. We need to draw fouls. What are we doing? And I talked about this with someone yesterday. Think about it in waves, and think about how you watch Boston and there's a like 2 to 4 minute stretch where they took like 6 threes. Like, it was just 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and they made 1 or 2 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then there's some moments where they make 4, 5, or 6, and those 2 stretches out of like the 7 stretches of those that happen in game, they just won them the game.
Yeah.
The flurries are just there, and they're going to happen if you just keep taking them. I don't think I'm breaking trade secrets here. Gerald already shared it today anyway. And I think it's been previously known anyway. Budenholzer has like these spots, and this isn't like, this isn't breaking news or anything, or I'm trying to think of like the right way to say it without being mean. Like, not exactly revolutionary offensive concepts. Like, I think we know what modern spacing looks like, but in a helpful way, Budenholzer during practice will have 5 spots on the floor where it's like, in order to best utilize spacing, I can't have you leave this little box. Mm-hmm. So the 2 on the wing, 2 in the corner, 1 up top. If you think about where they are in your head, guess what? They're there. Like, they're there. So he's already implementing, at least from a spacing perspective, and that's what I'm writing about for the threes piece, is it's okay for some teams not to try and take a million threes, but if your team has really good three-point shooting and has ways to create good spacing consistently, then you should look to take a lot of threes. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Like, I think Dallas is a team, for example, where last year, was it the best idea in the world for PJ Washington to take 7 threes a game? It was when he was shooting 45% in the playoffs, but those are the types of teams that could afford to go down. I think the Lakers were a team that was really low in threes, if I remember correctly, but they actually had shooting. So that's kind of like the give and take there. They didn't have elite shooting. Calm down, Lakers fans that are watching. But I'm saying, like, they had some capable shooters, and this team has Grayson, who is one of the, taking into consideration even the degree of difficulty on the shots and like guys taking stuff off the dribble, he's one of the 10 best 3-point shooters in the league with over the last half decade. Kevin, who is one of the best 3-point shooters ever. Book and Brad, who their numbers are down, but they're better shooters than their numbers are. Royce is a league average guy. Tyus is a league average guy. Those are 6 of the 7 guys who are going to be playing the most minutes for you. You have a team that can take a lot of threes, so you should take a lot of threes. Will they take a lot of threes? I don't know. I watched a borderline live protest that was like, oh, we'll take threes now. That was crazy. 20 of 27. I'm never going to forget those numbers, man. That was... I might go rewatch that first quarter right now.
And I think if I make a football analogy here about, like, when we talk about run game, sets up the deep passes and stuff like that, but also...
Don't talk about Don't talk about football in general. Don't even make the metaphor, man. I already have to get it out on the shows
I'll get out, man. Yeah. Trying to eject here.
No, thanks.
I think I saw a graph this offseason that was like... teams that had the opposing center farthest from the paint. Guess who was number 1 when you talk about the Celtics? It was the Celtics because their center was standing at the 3-point line. There's going to be a lot more when you talk spacing room if Nurk's pulled out a little bit more, if there really are threatening defenders. That stuff, if you somehow implement Bull playing more 5. I don't know. Bud actually had some pretty positive sounding things that stood out to me on him. But my
Nurk stuff was interesting. It turned out that my forensic social media investigation, my astute
only
analysis,
you saw.
Yeah, I'm the only one who thought of that.
But yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff is going to get up more threes, but also it's going to pave the way for drives and paint points. And if it's not driving paint points, then it's going to be someone panicking on the weak side coming over to help, and then it is going to be threes. So just all of that considered, like, no question their threes should get a big bump. From what we know about Bud, from his history, they're talking about it. It's happening. What else you got?
I'm going to tease this, and we'll talk about this more going into the year. Mm-hmm. So let's not fully unpack it now, but big fan of Tyus Jones. Love his game. And I'm going to say this next thing again, respectfully. There's a big difference between being the best point guard, best backup point guard, and a starting point guard. Like, that gap and how big it is in this situation, I'm really interested to kind of see. Because I believe that he is a really good point guard, but point guards are the opposite of quarterbacks. I just brought up the NFL again. I hate myself. Because Mike Conley is like the 17th best point guard, and the 17th best quarterback is Kyler Murray. I don't know. Freaking Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Probably not Jared Goff. Geno Smith. I don't know.
He had a really good game.
That's my hot take. My hottest NFL take right now this year is Geno's a top 10 quarterback. And
he had a really good game, yeah.
He looked good last night. We're talking football. I don't know what we're doing.
Don't ruin your rookie quarterbacks on the rookie contracts. Don't ruin their...
But how good can Tyus be? And the great thing about this is they are not going to be asking a whole lot out of him. Just do the point guard stuff, and he is a very, like...
He's going to trip into...
If you rated every point guard in the league of, like, how much of a point guard are you? He would score in the top 10. He is such a point guard. Like, if the Chris Paul scale, let's call it that, he would score very highly on the Chris Paul scale. I did not mention this when we prep, but I thought of it, and we should definitely unpack it. We talked about it a lot on our show yesterday, and by a lot, I mean I yapped for like 6 straight minutes in the 6-minute segment we did on it. The cat trade was wild.
Oh, yeah.
That was insane. If you haven't kept up, the Minnesota Timberwolves on the same date a year later that the Suns traded DeAndre Ayton, just to give you like reference here on perspective on
time of
how
year.
close this happened to the regular season. He gets traded to the Knicks. They get back Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. Referenced it on the last podcast. We talked about it 2 months ago, where there's a trade that's going to happen. We're just sitting here waiting, and that's the reason why we're not previewing things. We're going to sit here and wait, and maybe we should wait like 2 more weeks. Maybe we should wait until like the week before the regular season to like preview the West, man, because like there's still.
That's fine.
Is Yves Missy like the starting center for the Pelicans? Like what is like?
That's not good. You said that.
I saw like a rumor, and it was probably just someone like, again, 2 + 2 = 4 reporting instead of like actual reporting. Like Trey Murphy for Mitchell Robinson. I was like, don't do that. What are you doing? You guys can't be that desperate. And it's just some throwaway report. And if I just insulted someone who's a legitimately great reporter in the New Orleans area, I apologize.
Yeah.
Why'd they do that, Kev?
Oh.
Because they...
Do they have who's owner? Do we know who's an owner there?
One is one of the greatest baseball players of all time. Another
Different
one
sport,
is a
okay.
guy who doesn't like to spend money. The other, I believe the guy who doesn't like to spend money is still the guy right now, technically.
There's a legal battle.
And he no like spendy the money.
Yeah.
The background. We saw this Timberwolves team last year. They look like maybe the best team in the league to me, especially in the Denver series. I was like, the Denver, I think you and I may have had a pod then where we were like, is this the NBA Finals right now? Is like winner is going to beat whoever's coming out of the East? And then Boston did what they did. I think that's a totally different series if it's Minnesota or Denver. I think Dallas was a really good matchup for them. Minnesota comes into this year, they lose Kyle Anderson, but they get Rob Dillingham as their spark plug guard now. I think a little bit of like, again, not the pie chart. 9% of this is, if Rob Dillingham sucks, it's great to have Dante DiVincenzo now. Because I wrote in my thing, which was semi-prophetic, by saying, it's not like they're going to make a crazy trade, but there's like some win now equity here that we should talk about.
They have Terrence Shannon, too.
They have Terrence Shannon, too, who... Though both those guys were capable in situations, I think, to play, but they made their team a little bit deeper with all of this. But I was saying that in a way of being like, you guys are, I thought they were going to win 6. I was going to pick them to actually finish with the 1 seed this year. I was going to pick them to win more games than OKC. I thought they were going to win 60. I thought they were going to be amazing this year. And again, maybe be the favorites in the West. And so essentially, John Krasinski, who does an unbelievable job for The Athletic, following the Timberwolves, wrote this really long thing. A lot of it included his sources telling him stuff that kind of gave you the thought process a little bit. And one line in there was, if Cat regressed this year, there was fear that they wouldn't be able to trade him because he is on the same supermax that Book is on, which is incredibly expensive. But Cat just had
best.
2 really, really, really good, like, I said it on our pod a lot, and I know people absolutely loved me giving so much attention to Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns on the Suns podcast.
Yeah.
Guess what? I did it before with seeing like
Luka Doncic,
Nikola Jokic, and like Giannis put together one of the greatest finals performances of all time. Sorry, I'm going to admire basketball while it's happening in front of me. Cat was guarding Kevin Durant for the team that swept Kevin Durant's team. He was a primary matchup, at least. They put different guys on him, don't get me wrong. Like McDaniels was there. And then he guarded Jokic a lot. And he was Cat offensively, and then he was making plays everywhere, and only the dump foul stuff popped up here and there. And it only really came to a head in the Western Conference Finals. But this trade just reeked of, we still don't trust this guy. We still do not fully trust him. And I get that, but just wait 1 more year. You've got something really special here. And the line that I had in the article was, Julius Randle, in terms of acclimating to someone, is a hexagonal peg in a round hole. Like, you are going to need to take a ton of... Rudy said it on Media Day yesterday.
It took a whole year for Cat and Rudy, who actually offensively it actually does fit, and it took a while.
They just saw that this took a year-long thing that included someone punching a wall and breaking their hand, and then a near fight happening on your bench during a game. That's how long that process took and how hard that process was. So now you're going to do it again with, you have a beautiful ecosystem that seems to be really working, and you're putting in Julius Randle, who now that ecosystem has to kind of turn into a little bit of a Julius Randle ecosystem. Julius Randle, when he's fully going, is a great player. I think he's fantastic even. I think that if you watched enough of the Knicks the last couple of years, which if you're a true league pass head, like of course you're tuning in for Breen and Clyde every now and then. Amazing. Like just some of like the 40 burgers that he would have where he just completely took over games physically. It was unbelievable to watch. Him on that Minnesota team with the way they're going to beat people up, and they beat people up last year, is going to be incredible. I can't wait to watch that as a basketball fan. But it's going to take the whole year, and guess what? The Suns now just lost Minnesota will not win the title this year. I'll say it fully. They are not going to win the championship this year. This is going to take too long, and honestly, they should flip Randall now. They should flip him for... Either they trust Nas at the 4 full-time or they don't. They're probably going to pay him anyway to do that, so why not just get ahead of that? Unless they really do believe in Randall, but I think, again, this was more about getting off Cat. The only way I see this working out for them is they flip Randall. Like, do not re-sign him. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Unless you really work at the process and you see results in March and April like you did last year that suggest, but that's a dangerous thing to look at. Oh, we did this with Cat and Rudy. We can do it. No, it doesn't work like that. You re-sign your boy, the 3 initials, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, our boy. By the way, your boy. I should say our boy. Like, I like watching him play, but he's always been your boy. Your boy is making $4 million this year.
Great deal, yeah.
So he's a free agent next year. Woo! It's like Christian Walker making 10. You know, it's like going to be tripling that.
Thing.
Like he's going to be Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to be making 25 a year with these new numbers that are going around. Nas coming up. Again, he just got that deal, but he's going to have a really, really big one coming up soon. Rudy has 2 years left, so there's like a mini extension thing coming where can you add 2 more years on it with a team option at the end kind of thing.
Yeah.
Dante comes in and you add a deeper piece, and he has not one of the best contracts in the league, but one of the best contracts in the league for a non-star player. Because, like, you know what's an awesome contract? Like, whatever Shea's making right now, like, whatever Luka is making right now, whatever Giannis is making right now, whatever Jokic is making right now, that's one of the best contracts. Can you tell I hate it when people say that? Caitlin Clark has the best contract in sports, for what it's worth, by the way, if we're really going there. Can you... Dante's under contract through 2027.
Yeah.
So you got him for, that's 3 more seasons, I believe. 3 more seasons.
What are we doing here? Yeah.
If you get there, but you're already here right now.
Yeah.
You just got to pay a little bit more money this year.
1 year.
Just 1 year, eat it 1 more year, and then next year punt.
Yeah. And also it's like Conley kind of getting toward the end of his career, value as leader though. Rudy, like, I wouldn't sign him past this year. Like, I think he's gonna fade out pretty quick at some point soon. I don't know. I just don't understand. Like, you want to set up Ant for 5 years down the road instead of just being like, just take your next step now and then we'll be in the title chase. I don't know. It doesn't make sense for me.
Suns fans should be celebrating in the streets because the West is going to be a bloodbath again. And I think that there were 4 teams with like serious title equity. I think the Suns have some, but now it's down to 3. Like, I'll say 3, and I'll say that the Suns now become the team with like the next most title equity. I think OKC and Dallas are now far above everyone else. I would say OKC now even has a pretty big chunk. Dallas has a decent sized chunk, and then like I would put Phoenix and Denver right next to each other. We got to see what this Denver thing is, man.
Yeah.
If Jamal Murray misses 15 games, which he usually misses 15 games, man, it's going to be rough for them. And they're going to Michael Porter Jr. get hurt? Oh no, that's not a fun thing to say.
That's not a question.
So that's kind of teasing a little bit of like our West review, I guess we'll call it, a preview, whatever we're going to do with that in a couple of weeks. I don't know, but I was just shocked by it. And the Suns angle here, of course, second apron, all that kind of stuff. But it appears Minnesota it's funny when you see the same message on different accounts, basically, where it's like, and that's super helpful for me, at least, because it shows me like that's the front offices or whoever the source is, like they're thinking in Minnesota organizationally what they're saying, and they're selling like Ants Prime, we want to be better in here, and it's like, you could have won a championship before Ants Prime. Why does it matter when it's like,
let's not worry about tomorrow. Let's worry about today, y'all.
We got any fun stuff coming up? What's up? There's a preseason game on Sunday.
Wow, we're there. No. Let's just keep the positive vibes about the basketball team for now.
Yeah, it's not like I got to watch Kyle Shanahan beat up the Cardinals again after that. Everyone makes it a Sean McVay thing, by the way. Like, dude, Shanahan just like rips
It's a
dudes.
Shanahan tree. Yeah.
Ugh.
It's just the younger. Lakers
4:30. We are not going to sit here and preview a preseason game with you guys because we're not going to learn anything. We can sit there and say, oh, Brad was guarding, but like... Well,
the Suns' offense was great in that Detroit game to open last preseason.
I guess the position battle is the 10th spot in the rotation, because if we go through, you've got the 5 starters, you've got Royce and Grayson off the bench, you've got the backup center, who I am assuming is Mason Plumlee, and then you've got Monte Morris as the backup point guard, who I assume is going to play.
My preview is Bull Watch. That's all.
Yeah. By the way, I tried to ask Monte about that. Like, yo, was that crazy when like they probably told you you were like going to be the point guard, and then they signed another point guard, and he gave an incredibly mature, like, me and Tyus are already boys. Like, we're working out together. That we're not competing with each other. And it was with a smile on his face. It was cool. He seems like a great dude. Yeah. Bull done. I don't think you can include Iguodaro in the 10th man thing because he will be. It'll either be him or Plumlee. I think that's a legitimate thing to watch. Mm-hmm. Damian Lee, great to see Damian back. I'm going to post it whenever the Suns post it. His full availability was awesome. He was super transparent about everything. If you didn't know, tore his meniscus, and then they were like, ooh, that's actually one of the worst ones. And then they looked again, and they were like, ooh, that's actually like the worst kind of one.
The worst of the worst?
Like both roots came out, whatever that meant. He had setbacks in rehab. It took him a whole year. He thought at one point like he might be done, just playing at all. And he's a guy who, he said it, he like tore both his ACLs, broke his hand. Like, he's been through a million things. But he was a full participant today, Bud said. Okay. So good to see him back, and hopefully it would be a great story to see him kind of break back into the rotation. Josh Okogie is there too, but yeah, we'll talk preseason ball sometime next week. They're back home, or they're in Detroit on Tuesday, a week from today.
Sounds right.
We'll come back after that second game. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah.
All right, man. See you then.
All right.